The story begins with a typical house in Japan. Airsoft equipment such as a mask, guns and pellets are seen on a table, as well as a photo frame showing a group of people in military uniform. A man stands at the entrance of his house, saying, "Let's go then." The man's name is Koga Daisuke, who is 40 years old. He was your average salaryman who loves survival games. He soon reached a sign with weird symbols on it. The sign was translated to mean "Be warned of magi beasts," but Daisuke couldn't read a single word on it or understand it a bit. He thinks to himself about the act that he was wandering through another world through his closet by himself. He walks away from the sign while scratching his head. He talks out loud about the fact that the place where he was is filled full of animals and plants he had never seen before, which surprises him each time. It causes his brain to be all bugged up thinking about. Weird black creatures were seen around Daisuke, as well as Mario's mushrooms. He reaches around for his airgun, finding it surprising that out of all his things, this was the only item that he had with him. But a rapid thumbing sound was heard from behind, causing Daisuke to turn around to see what it was. He gets the shock of his life seeing a horde of weird creatures holding weapons rushing toward him. The creature screams out loud upon seeing him. They were a bunch of goblins who have low intelligence but moves in packs. A goblin tries to attack Daisuke, but he dodges it easily, shouting out that it was close and wondered what in the world these little creatures were. But goblins didn't stop their attacks and continued to bite at Daisuke's shoulder bag as he tries his best to pull it away from them. When all of a sudden the goblins were sent flying into the air. A little girl dressed in armor and wielding a sword had appeared. She shouts out to Daisuke to hide behind her as the goblins watched their moves. But she tells him to hurry, so Daisuke quickly agrees and went behind her back. He stares at her thinking that she was a girl holding a sword. The little girl yells at the goblins to stop targeting Daisuke as she will be their opponent. Hearing this made the goblins angrier as they screamed out louder. The little girl then prepares her attack, shouting out the words, "O sword, lend me thy strength." 3 of the goblins jump toward her to attack. But she easily cuts them all down with a single swing of her sword. The goblins that tried to attack her were sent flying to the trees. She swings her sword once again and strikes another goblin down. She dodges the attack of one of the goblins that tried to attack her from the back, and counterattacks the goblin with a hit to its stomach. She then bitch slaps another goblin in its face. Daisuke could only stare as he thinks of her as such a cool person, as she caused the other goblins to retreat in fear. She then turns to Daisuke to ask if he was okay. Daisuke then wipes the sweat off his face with his handkerchief, thanking her for saving him back there. She then introduces herself as Lina, a traveling knight. He then introduces himself as Koha Daisuke but tells her to just call him Daisuke. She giggles upon hearing his name as it sounded weird. She then informs him that she was glad that he wasn't hurt and recited a prayer over him, "May the blessings of the manna be granted upon you." A campfire is seen with food being roasted. Lina explains to Daisuke that when goblins formed a pack, they became violent and attacked people and settlements alike. Daisuke takes note of that information as Lina tells him that she was currently stationed at the village nearby to exterminate the goblins in the surrounding areas. Daisuke was impressed to see that her job was to exterminate goblins. He praises her on her ability to talk amiably in an efficient manner, which was a crucial point in business. He chuckles and tells her that he would like her to work in his company if possible. He also complimented the fact that she was young but was properly getting a hold of herself. Hearing these compliments from Daisuke made Lina flustered as she tells him that it was all nothing. She then changes the topic and tells him that she has never seen the clothes that Daisuke was wearing, as those clothes did not exist in this country. She then looks at the airgun that Daisuke brought with him, wondering what that strangely shaped talisman was. Daisuke picks up the airgun and informs her that it was actually a personal use self-defense weapon. Lina was impressed and thought about how Daisuke was going to use it. She images him swinging it at a goblin and thought that it wouldn't do much. Lina then stands up and informs Daisuke that it was dangerous for him to walk all alone in the forest. She wanted to escort him to the village. Hearing this made Daisuke fluster as he tells her that there was no need, but Lina was firm with her decision. She grabs onto his hand and tells him that there was no need to put on an act and that there was nothing embarrassing about being weak. She looks him with her big eyes, telling him that to protect the weak is their duty as knights. Daisuke finally agrees and tells Lina that he will be in her care as they set off before dusk. After walking for a while, Lena points out to Daisuke that they could now see the village. But a few animal shadows soon appeared in the bushes near them. Lena senses this and informs Daisuke that she was experiencing an unknown feeling as she felt that all the animals were trying to avoid something. She grips onto her sword, informing him that there might be goblins nearby. When all of a sudden something came crashing down. A huge stone-like demonic creature with wings had appeared in front of the both of them. Lena was shocked and stunned to see the creature. Daisuke shouts out that it is huge. That's what she said, and knew that the creature was not a goblin at least. The huge creature was revealed to be a gargoyle, a magi beast created by casting sorcery on statues, making them attack people as it louds out a fierce roar. Lena dodges its attack by jumping in the air while telling Daisuke that the creature was a gargoyle. She wonders why such a strong monster like this one was here. But she prepares herself for the fight anyway, as she could not let it rampage in a place like this. Daisuke pops up beside her and asks her if it was going to be fine, as he thinks that they should both run away, but she tells him that the village was nearby. Lena then orders Daisuke to go to the village while she holds off the gargoyle here. Daisuke could only stare as Lena charges forward, shouting out her battle cry, "O sword, lend me thy strength." She then turns into a sideways bay blade and spins to wind towards the gargoyle. Her sword crashes into the gargoyle's arm, but her face was disgusted at how tough the gargoyle was, as her sword couldn't pierce it, and the gargoyle's giant hand was then seen directly above Lena. She sees it and quickly jumps away to avoid it as it came down and crashes the ground below. Lena regains her composure and aims to strike back at it, but her attacks could not damage the gargoyle even one bit. She becomes more flustered as she thinks about how a gargoyle was a monster whose sole purpose was to attack humans and couldn't even fathom what would happen if it ever gets to the village. The gargoyle manages to land a heavy blow on Lena as she was distracted by her thoughts. Daisuke calls out to her in concern as he sees her body fall to the ground. He starts to think that Lena could no longer hold on. He then started to think that he understood the reason why he was granted this ability for times like these. Lena struggles to stand up as she pants hard while recovering from the attack. She knew that she couldn't possibly let herself be defeated here. The gargoyle rushes in to attack her once again, but Lena notices that something was wrong with her body and that she couldn't dodge the attack. All she could do now was just close her eyes from the impending attack. But something hits the gargoyle in the face, causing it to be off-balanced and saves Lena. Lena was surprised to see what it was. It was Daisuke who did the attack as he held onto his airgun with smoke coming out of it. He takes a step forward, talking about how traveling to another and meeting strange monsters, having surprising things one after another. He aims his weapon at the gargoyle and continuously shoots at it while saying that the thing he was most surprised with was his airgun that he held in his hand. His ability was to turn his airsoft gun in this world into an actual real working firearm. Lena shouts out to him with concern as she watches him fight the gargoyle face to face. She recognizes the weapon he was holding as the strangely weird talisman he had shown her earlier. He explains to her about his weapon, that it was a Glock 17, a fully automatic handgun manufactured by the Glock company in Austria. Shooting 9mm parabellum rounds, the most prominent characteristic of this gun is its body, which is made of polymer plastics to reduce its weight. Additionally, compared to other handguns, it is very easy to handle, which means it allows the user to instantly counteract the enemy's movement. As Daisuke explained the features of his weapon, he had managed to do tremendous damage to the gargoyle using the American way. Lena shouts out that the gargoyle was faltering. She couldn't believe what she was seeing and think it was unbelievable. The gargoyle turns in pieces of rocks from Daisuke's attacks. Lena was surprised to see it this way, as Daisuke managed to defeat a gargoyle that even multiple veteran knights may not be able to, and he had done it without even using a sword while being alone, almost if it was God's power or American style. The gargoyle falls after Daisuke empties his clips into it. He then rushes to Lena to check on her, but she shouts at him, causing him to be surprised. Lena apologizes to him for being rude until now, and that his overwhelming strength meant that Daisuke was the god of war himself. But he tells her that he was not and that she needed to raise her head. Daisuke then handed over his name card, but Lena was not able to understand the letters on it. He looks at his watch and figures that it was about time that he returns home. Lena then tells him that she wanted to ask him something. but he informs her that he will return once his work was done at his company. Lena was confused with the word company. Daisuke turns to leave and tells her to hold onto the name card. He soon enters through a gateway and slowly disappeared as Lena wondered who Daisuke truly was. We are now back in modern Japan, where Koga Daisuke, our 40-year-old man, who spends half his income on survival game items and travels to another world right after work, was just your ordinary salaryman. 2 days ago, amidst a survival game where grown men are shooting at each with fake guns, an announcement is heard telling the players that the match will end in 30 seconds. Daisuke was continuously firing his weapon at the enemies as he recalls a memory where a friend was getting married and he told him congratulations. A flashback reveals plates filled with food and beer everywhere. A coworker tells Daisuke that from now on he won't be able to freely use the money he earned, but that it wasn't that bad since he was living for the sake of another. He tells Daisuke that he was a kind and dependable man and that he would find someone right away. Back to the present, Daisuke couldn't believe that he was 40 years old today and wondered if he was definitely at his expiration date already. He blames it on him getting hooked on survival games all the time without realizing as he reloads his weapon. But he continues to return fire at his opponent, yelling out that his heart was still in his 20s. His opponents tried to run away from his attacks as they commented on how he was so op as usual. As he continues to shoot at them, Daisuke couldn't help but wonder about his coworker's words about living for the sake of another, as he had only done everything for himself till now. He soon finds himself being covered by what he thought was a smoke screen in the confined area he was in, but once the smoke screen was cleared he was startled to see that his surroundings had changed. Daisuke was confused as he wonders where he was, as he was no longer at the survival game place. But a massive stomping sound could be heard that catches his attention. A huge griffin had appeared behind Daisuke with its massive claw reaching out to him. Daisuke screams out upon seeing it and wonders what this huge-ass bird was. The huge-ass bird then roars fiercely into the skies and tries to stomp heavily onto Daisuke, but he manages to leap away from its attack. A voice appears telling Daisuke to fight to his heart's fill. He looks around wondering where the voice or person talking to him was. The voice continues to speak to him, telling Daisuke it has given him the power to fight and to use it well. Daisuke was alarmed to see that his weapon began to glow brightly in front of him. He unloads the magazine from his rifle and sees that real bullets were present inside it. Daisuke was shocked to see that his airsoft gun had turned itself into an actual real firearm. It had become an actual M4 carbine, one of the most commonly used assault rifles in the world, which has a chambering of 5.56mm NATO rounds. A gun that is able to shoot in 3-round burst mode. You guys would know it from CSGO. Daisuke primes himself to attack the huge-ass bird, knowing that he had trained himself in firearms control during training sessions, but wondered if the weapon would even work against a creature of that size. But a determined look filled his eyes as he cast away his doubts. He aims the gun fully believing in its firepower, and he then unleashes a heavy wave of bullets toward the huge-ass bird. The huge-ass bird decides to back away after experiencing the power of America in the form of bullets. Daisuke was surprised to see that it was running away. A person appears beside him telling him that he was truly splendidly summoned one. Daisuke was shocked by the sudden appearance and wonders who it was as he turns his head real quick. A girl appears and introduces herself as Krim, the observer of this world. With a smile on her face, she informs Daisuke that this place was what the people from his world called another world. Daisuke was shocked to hear the words another world. Krim then explains to him that she had made certain of his abilities by using the griffin from before. She had traveled through worlds in search of battle-hardened strong people like him. Daisuke tries to explain to her that the survival games he took part in were simply games, but Krim assures him that his abilities were the real deal. She then tells him about how it was not just his fighting skills but also the redeemable qualities of his inherent goodness, and above all that the heart that has never turned away a person in need. Hearing this stunned Daisuke for a moment, until a sweat drips down his face as he noted that she was being quite specific. She then explains to him that as of this moment, the world they were in was on the brink of being engulfed by malevolence and that it will eventually be plunged into chaos. Krim states that as an observer she could not interfere with this world directly, and that she needed Daisuke to be the one to help anyone he met that needed help. And eventually, the world would be saved. Krim was convinced that he will succeed. Daisuke thinks about how helping people in trouble would be fine by itself, but he had a job and needed rest, making the situation kind of tricky. Krim assures him not to worry as she summons a portal. She tells him that she had connected the entrance of this world to his closet. Daisuke was surprised to see his actual room appear in the portal she summoned. Krim then tells him that it was okay for him to do it whenever he had the time, and to just take it easy and go save the world. Daisuke was pleased to hear that he could save the world whenever he wanted to. Krim then asks how her proposal sounded. Daisuke turns to her to reply, telling her that he understood these kinds of work conditions and that he had no problems. In exchange for accepting her deal, Krim bestows upon Daisuke special abilities to help him on his journey. Daisuke's body was soon covered in a bright glow as he wondered what the special abilities were. Krim explains that the tool he was carrying can be made real, as his special ability was the power to turn it into its real-life counterpart only in this world. Daisuke was happy and shocked to see that he had the power to turn his airsoft gun into a real firearm, and that he should give his name card to the person he holds dear. Lena was sitting alone when all of a sudden the name card Daisuke gave her started to float and glowed brightly. She tries to hold onto it thinking it was the charm given by Daisuke and recalled his words about it, that even when separated by distance, he had cast a spell upon it to lead her to where that person currently is. Daisuke then appears from the gate beside Lena. He tells her sup as Lena was caught by surprise by his sudden appearance. He tells her that she did great, making Lena happy as she was glad that he had really returned. Daisuke replies back that he would have definitely come back as promised, and asks her about what she wanted to ask him before. Lena tells him to follow her. They soon reached the village, but it appeared to be run down and empty. The villagers were hiding and soon spotted Lena. They came out from their hiding spots and circled Lena while praising her. A child called Rocco tells her that they were glad for her to return safely. Lena assures the little man that she was fine as she was really strong after all. Lena explains to Daisuke that until this very moment, the village was being controlled by a tamer. Daisuke asks what a tamer was, and she explains that it was a person who was able to make monsters do as he bids them to. Half a year ago this very man placed his sights on this village's harvest, and attacked it using the hordes of powerful monsters at his disposal. The villagers fought against him, but they could not hold their ground against the monsters. The girls were taken, and money and food reserves alike were constantly taken away. Lena happened to pass the village during one of her journeys, and in order to save the village, she had once challenged Murdoch. A flashback is shown as Lena battles Murdoch's monsters, telling him to release the village and its hostages. But Murdoch tells her that she looked like she had some skills, but her strength was nowhere near enough while holding onto the girls as hostages. As she continued to battle the monsters, Murdoch tells her that he was free to do anything to the women in the village. He will never let go of this luxurious life. He comments that in this world the strong one is the victor, which otherwise meant him. He orders his lizard men to attack Lena. Lena was losing in her battle as Murdoch looks down on her, telling her that he was going to make her his personal plaything just like every woman in the village. Lena was hurt from being attacked by multiple monsters and decided to run away. Daisuke had a firm expression on his face after hearing Lena's story. Her face was sad as she tells him that she couldn't do anything against Murdoch's strength and that she was only able to dispose of his goblin underlings until now. But then she happened to meet Daisuke, who showed her a light of hope. Her hands trembles as she mustered to ask Daisuke something. She asks him with tears in her eyes if he could lend her his strength. Just like a Giga Chad, Daisuke smiles and tells her of course, and that he would help her to the best of his ability. Lena smiles with joy upon hearing his words. She asks if he would really do it. Daisuke assures her that he would help as he couldn't forgive Murdoch and that he was touched by Lena's feelings towards the village. Hearing him say that made her grip his shirt, saying she was glad to have truly met someone like him. Rocco then asks if she was really going to get rid of the bad guys. Lena pats his head and assures him that she would bring his mother back, and to act as a good child and wait. She tells Daisuke that Murdoch had a mansion that was built in the deep part of the forest. She was now filled with determination to get her revenge. Armed with his pistol, locked and loaded, Daisuke tells her that they should go. Looking like James Bond, laughter could be heard within the castle that holds a perverted pig. Murdoch is seen surrounded by multiple village women while drinking wine. He shouts out how delightful, and tells them that when you have power, you can have all the money and all the women you want. He then hits the woman pouring wine into his cup, scolding her for pouring wine the way she was doing it, causing her to scream from being hit. He points a finger at her, telling her that he could control monsters and that it would be better for her to stay on his good side. Daisuke and Lena could be seen entering the castle a floor below where Murdoch was. He soon notices the sounds of their footsteps and turns to look. Lena sees him and immediately draws her sword and calls out to Murdoch. "Oh my! Oh my! Aren't you the knight who ran away after being defeated by the great me?" Murdoch asks. He continues to taunt Lena by assuming that since she came here, it meant that she hasn't learned her lesson yet. Lena shouts back at Murdoch, telling him that today was the day he will release all the women he took as hostages. Murdoch laughs at her reply and made fun of Lena for bringing her flimsy sword as well. He soon starts to laugh out loud upon seeing Daisuke beside her. He had thought that Lena would be bringing a different kind of knight, but instead had brought in a thin, scrawny man in the form of Daisuke. He continues to laugh and states that Lena was really short on help right now. He then grabs onto the village women, telling them that they were now going to watch an interesting show. Murdoch began to cast a spell by chanting the following words: "O draconian kindred adorned with fangs, rise and seek the blood of thine enemies." Monsters clad in armor and swords soon began to arise from behind Daisuke, which catches his attention as he turns to look at what was forming behind him. They were lizard men, which were reptilian warriors whose bodies were cloaked with tough scales. Daisuke screams in a panic at the approaching lizard man, shouting that it was a lizard who has weapons and is running at full speed toward them. The lizard man shows a smile while sticking its tongue out. Murdoch commands his lizard man to go forth and turn Daisuke and Lena into minced meat. The village women who were hostages called out to Lena in concern as they could only watch the battle unfold from above. Lena's mind was filled with the thoughts of the little kid from the village who wanted to be reunited with his mother. As the battle had started, Lena immediately began to chant her prayer with the following words: "O sword, grant me thy strength." After chanting her prayer, she begins to strike back against the lizard man, and soon uses her skill turning slash to transform into a human Beyblade, striking the lizard men down with ease. But another lizard man appears from behind her. Lena manages to block the attack just in time. The lizard man smiles at her as it pushes its blade harder against Lena's sword. Lena's face was filled with struggle as their blades continued to collide. But something knocks the lizard man away from Lena in an instant. It was revealed that the attack had come from Daisuke and his power of America, as his pistol emitted smoke from being recently fired. He continues to unleash the power of freedom onto the lizard man. Seeing this weird power shocks Murdoch as he watches the battle from above. He thinks about what that power was as Daisuke was releasing powerful spells that even he didn't know about. Murdoch continues to watch Daisuke fire upon the lizard man and was alarmed as he was doing it without chanting. It was as if Daisuke was shooting arrows that were invisible to the naked eye. Lena could only stand in awe and exclaimed that Daisuke was really amazing. Murdoch continued to be shocked to see that Daisuke's attacks were effective against his lizard man, a monster whose bites can crush bones and whose scales are tough like armor. He looks at Daisuke firing his weapon and wonders why a powerful monster like the lizard man was being beaten so easily by a strange-looking scrawny man. The village women were amazed and started talking amongst themselves upon seeing this sight. Murdoch shouts at Daisuke, asking who he was and whether he was a sorcerer or perhaps even a spirit user. Daisuke yells back at Murdoch, "My name is Koga Daisuke, Tookita Trading Design Planning Section Chief, a salaryman." Murdoch was confused upon hearing Daisuke's introduction as he wondered what a salaryman was, and he had never heard of such a class before. As Daisuke continued to fire upon the lizard man, he noted that even though the situation was beyond his expectations, with this level of enemy Daisuke didn't think he would have any problems. Daisuke continues to unleash the power of America onto two more lizard men who could not defend against his attacks. Seeing that his lizard man was losing, Murdoch decides to leave and calls his lizard man useless. As he continues to run away, Murdoch decides that he needed to get something else from his private collection instead. He soon arrives in front of a jar and noted that once he uses this one, it would be the end for Daisuke and Lena. Murdoch soon starts to chant another spell onto the jar with the following words: "O avaricious ruler of earth, devour as you please." As the lizard man continued to attack Daisuke, it screams at him, but Daisuke's attacks causes it to block his attacks, but weird tentacles soon appear behind it. The tentacles soon wrap themselves around the lizard man and pull it away from Daisuke, which causes him to be confused. He soon sees that a giant plant-eating monster had been summoned and had pulled on all the nearby lizard men, eating them in the process. The newly summoned monster was called the Man-Eater, a large type of carnivorous plant capable of self-motion and possessing intelligence to trap animals and other living beings. Lena informs Daisuke that it was a carnivorous plant, as both she and Daisuke stood still in shock at this sight. Meanwhile, Murdoch was laughing as he tells them to have a taste of his prized collection. Lena then unleashes a powerful downward strike onto the man-eater towards one of its tentacles. Her attack leaves a deep cut, but it soon begins to heal itself. Lena was alarmed to see that the man-eater could regenerate its wound. Futile! Swords will not work against it. The wounds will instantly regenerate, Murdoch shouts. Daisuke attempts to attack as well and manages to land a few hits on the man-eater. But it soon regenerates from his attacks with ease, much to Daisuke's displeasure. Lena tells him that it was useless to attack as its regenerative power was overwhelming, and it wouldn't have any effect if they didn't use a powerful attack. But a tentacle interrupts her talk with an attack. Daisuke understood Lena's words and thought about something in his closet. He recalls a past memory where Krim told him that his closet and the world he was in were connected and that Daisuke could easily access it at any time. Daisuke soon places his arm into a portal. His arm soon appears with his closet back in Japan, which was filled with various types of weapons. He soon grabs onto a single weapon. He pulls it out of the portal, which began to shine bright like a diamond. No one could stop it until it ate every living being in its surroundings, yelled Murdoch. He tells Lena that they were all finished and that it serves them right. Lena tried to attack the man-eater but was struck back. She sees a man calling out to her asking if she was all right. Lena whispers the name Oliver upon seeing this sight. But Daisuke's face soon appears, which startles her. She calls out to him just as the tentacles started to appear behind him. She tells him to watch out as the tentacles move fast and closer to them. But he turns around and blasted the tentacles away in a single shot. The tentacles were blown away and had stopped regenerating. Murdoch was stunned and shocked to see this happening. He looks at the new weapon in Daisuke's hands and wondered what the hell it was to stop the man-eater's regeneration ability. Daisuke introduces his new baby as the Franchi Spas 12, a shotgun manufactured by the Lughi Fracci, a company in Italy. He reloads the shotgun and states that it is a special-purpose automatic shotgun Spas. Used by military and police forces alike, it can unload an unlimited number of 12-gauge shells. It has a low penetration power, but at a closer distance, it can obliterate your average targets. Almost all the tentacles of the man-eater had been blown away by Daisuke's shotgun, but he continues to unleash the fury of freedom, citing that nations even called the Spas miniature cannons, a weapon exclusively made for close-quarter combat. With this, it can't regenerate its wounds easily, Daisuke tells Lena. He then asks Lena if the man-eater had any weak points, and she tells him that it does. As she charges towards the man-eater, she explained to Daisuke that the plant monsters always have core organs called stem cells or regenerative points deep within themselves. Daisuke would be able to defeat it once he destroys it. She then turns back into a human Beyblade to attack the man-eater. Her attack manages to reveal the core part of the man-eater. She then turns to Daisuke to inform him that it was now open to attack. Daisuke immediately leaps up and lands right above the core of the man-eater with his shotgun pointed at it. He looks at it and tells the man-eater that it was over. Fire erupts from the tip of his shotgun as Daisuke lets out one final blow of freedom onto the man-eater's core. Once the core was gone, the man-eater started to disappear. Murdoch screams out in horror over the loss of his prized collection. But he was more startled to see that Lena was standing right in front of him. He begs Lena to give him a minute, and that he would give her money or everything, even willing to go from 30% of his loot from the village to half of it. But Lena didn't care and struck him straight in his face, causing him to fly backward with his orb destroyed. Cheers of joy could be heard in the village as they realized that the village women had finally returned. A child quickly rushes into the embrace of his mother as Lena smiles at this interaction. Meanwhile, Murdoch was tied up by a villager who promised to hand him over to the officials. The little boy called Rocco went up to Lena and thanked her for returning his mother to him, bringing a smile to her face. Rocco then asks if Lena was going to leave the village now and begged her to stay with them instead. Lena apologizes to him and tells him that she was traveling to look for someone and could not stay for too long. As Daisuke and Lena left the village and were walking in the forest, Daisuke asks Lena if she was traveling to search for someone. She tells him that she was looking for the man that had raised her and trained her to become a swordsman. The man was called the White Knight Oliver. She explained that one day he had just left his sword and disappeared even though he promised to always stay to watch over her to become a proper knight. Lena's face was saddened as she tells Daisuke that she still had not become a proper knight. Daisuke remained silent upon hearing her story. He then asks if he could help her in searching for that person. He tells her that he had this habit of not being able to leave someone in need. Lena was blushing upon hearing this and immediately tells him that she would not refuse his help at all. Daisuke then turns to leave and informs her that he would come back again after his work was done. She thanks Daisuke in her mind as the portal he used slowly disappears. Up in the skies was Krim, who was watching over them. She grins and notes that she had chosen Daisuke as the right choice. Back in modern-time Japan, Daisuke is seen stretching his arms in the office. His co-workers commented that he looked like he was in a great mood recently. They wondered if he had finally met someone. A man from another world and a traveling female knight. The encounter of the two would lead to events that would change the fate of her world. A port is seen with workers carrying boxes and barrels with a ship docked. A portal suddenly appears in the middle of the port. The workers were confused to see the sudden appearance of a bright light. A foot suddenly appears from the portal. The workers scream upon seeing Daisuke exiting from the portal. Daisuke had finally returned to Lena's world at a port. His face was filled with surprise as he screams out that it was the sea with his arms open wide. Lena appears and greets him with a smile on her face. He greets her back with a wave. Lena explains that they were in the port city of Sessanorma. As they walk through the city together, Lena explains to Daisuke that due to the flow of goods that naturally came to the port, the people who wait for their ship's departure also spend their nights in this place. She then tells him that there might be a clue about the White Knight Oliver over there. Daisuke agrees with her as he says that with this many people, there was somebody who was bound to know something about him. A big man dressed like a jester was standing beside a signboard. He yells out to everyone to gather around at the Colosseum for the challenge battles. He holds a bell in his hand and continues to ring it, asking everyone if there was anyone here who feels confident about their abilities, as the champion of the challenge battles will get 100 pieces of gold. Daisuke was curious about what the jester was saying, so he asked Lena, who explains to him that it was a participant recruitment advertisement for matches in the Colosseum. Daisuke was happy to see that an actual real Colosseum existed here. Lena then tells him that just as its name suggests, it was originally built to hold shows and contests alike. And ever since the new lord took over, it was repurposed to hold matches. It became a betting ground, so the public order there got worse over time. As the crowd grew bigger, Lena had to inch closer to Daisuke, telling him that she had never heard anything good from that place and suggesting to him to stay out of that place as well. A hooded figure appears from behind them, is moving quickly in their direction. The hooded figure bumps heavily into Lena, causing her to fall toward Daisuke while screaming. Daisuke immediately grabs onto her, telling her that he got her just as the hooded figure dashes past them. Daisuke looks at the hooded figure and sees that it was a tan-skinned woman who had a tattoo on her face. He continues to stare at her just as she stares at him back. Soon the mysterious lady was seen rushing away from the both of them. Daisuke finally asks if Lena was alright, causing her to be flustered, but assures him that she was fine. She bends over to apologize to Daisuke for grabbing onto him as someone had bumped into her. Daisuke assures her that it was okay. The mysterious hooded woman could be seen bumping into more people as she ran through the crowd as Daisuke continued to stare at her in wonder. They soon entered Sango's eatery. When a delicious plate of food had been served on the table, it was one serving of wood-grilled nut steak. Daisuke exclaims out loud that the food looks delicious. Lena was happy to hear that and told him to consider this meal as a thank you from before. She explains that the anut was a common large fish that swims near the water's surface, and the wood-grilled steak is basically a local specialty. Lena then shouts out thanks for the meal. She recites a prayer with the following words: "For the bounty given by the ocean and the land, I am grateful." Daisuke on the other hand claps his hands together saying thanks for the meal. They soon each took a bite of the food. Daisuke shouted out delicious, and compared the taste of the anut with mackerel as they resemble each other a lot. He holds a fork with a piece of the anut up in the air, telling Lena that he believes it would go well with ginger soy or ponzu sauce. Daisuke really wanted to eat the anut dish with Japanese sake. Lena too was enjoying the food as well as she screams out delicious. She soon notices that Daisuke went silent and asked him if there was something wrong. He commented that Lena's face became like that when she smiled. Hearing this from Daisuke made her fluster as she asks him if he finds it weird. Daisuke chuckles upon hearing that response and tells her no. As they continued their meal, Lena tells him that today was her treat and wanted him to order as much as he liked. But she soon notices that something was wrong. Lena began to look all over the table and at the ground in a panicked manner, causing Daisuke to call out to her in concern. With tears in her eyes, she tells Daisuke that her wallet had gone missing, which shocks him. Lena then recalls the mysterious hooded figure that had bumped into her before, wondering if that was the moment her wallet was stolen. A tan-skinned woman with long ears and a tattoo on her face was tossing a bag of money in the air, noting that the knight who was Lena was surely loaded. She then recalls the outfit of Daisuke, who she saw before, and noticed that what he wore was strange, and that inside the bag of money was a strange talisman, which was Daisuke's calling card. She picks out the card with her fingers and notes that she had never seen such letters and wonders who exactly Daisuke was. Back at the restaurant, Lena was bending over to apologize to Daisuke for losing the precious talisman that he had given her before. But he tells her that it was okay as he still got plenty of it. Daisuke then assures her to not worry and that he would pay for the meal instead. The restaurant owner looks stunned upon seeing a Japanese $10,000 bill in her hand. She flicks it away and yells at Daisuke, asking him what the heck was with this useless piece of worthless. Daisuke screamed out upon seeing her throw away his $10,000 yen. The restaurant owner yells at him and tells him that they only accepted copper and silver coins. Daisuke was flustered over this blunder and then takes out his handphone. He then asked if they could accept wireless transactions instead. Seeing this made the restaurant owner even angrier. Some time had passed and Lena was now seen in a waitress outfit carrying food and drinks. She tells the customers that she was sorry for the long wait. The customers go crazy after her seeing that she was cute. More customers soon asked her to take their orders. People outside of the store soon heard rumors that the restaurant had hired a new cute waitress. The restaurant owner was seen handing over food and telling Lena that she was going to work her to the bone to pay off her tab. Lena agrees and assures her that she will do her best. An axe is seen swinging down hard and cutting wood. An old man smoking a pipe praises Daisuke for his muscles. Daisuke turns to thank him for the compliment. But the old man was grateful for Daisuke as he had saved him from doing the work as he was old and wrinkly now. Soon after they were done repaying their services, Lena once again apologizes to Daisuke because of her stolen wallet. But he assures her that it was fine since he worked for his own meal and enjoyed it. Daisuke then thought about how he should think of a way to earn money in this world, or else it would get inconvenient for them in the future. He thinks about how in a game you would earn money by defeating enemies, but was a weird system now that he thought about it. A man is seen slamming his fist hard on the table, yelling out, "What the F? You charged me for the drink that I haven't even taken a sip of yet." This conflict catches the attention of the mysterious hooded figure. The restaurant owner tells the man that it was his own fault since he spilled the drink. But the man was firm and told her that he would let it slide if she doesn't charge him for the food as well. But she yells at him asking him if he was going to dine and dash and that she wouldn't allow it to happen. Hearing the words "eat and run" made the man furious, causing him to pull out his sword and point it toward her. The restaurant owner panics and yells, "What are you doing to the man?" Lena sees this and calls out to the owner with concern. She then grabs onto her sword and tells the man to stop it as she would be his opponent. Daisuke suddenly appears between the man and the owner. Both the owner and the mysterious hooded figure were surprised to see him there. The man yells at Daisuke asking him to scram, but Daisuke stood still, telling him that he was bothering the others and to be quiet. The man was angry upon Daisuke asking him to be quiet, and rushes towards him preparing to strike Daisuke down. The owner screams at Daisuke to get out of the way as he was going to get himself killed. But once again the power of America reveals itself as Daisuke shoots the sword out of the man's hand. The man holds his arm in pain after having been shot by Daisuke. The mysterious hooded figure was stunned to see what had just happened. Lena rushes over to Daisuke with concern, but he assures her that he was fine. He informs her that he had shot the man with a rubber bullet. A past memory with Krim showed that she had explained to Daisuke that aside from being able to turn his airsoft guns into real firearms, he would be able to use any munition type at will. Daisuke was surprised to learn that and remarked that it was convenient. Krim tells him to use it as he sees fit. Back at the restaurant, the other members of the man's group join to attack Daisuke. But Daisuke manages to defend himself by shooting at them. He explains that this type of munition, which is made out of rubber, was developed in order to suppress riders. And it may have a shorter range compared to metal projectiles, but it packs damage comparable to the punch from a heavyweight boxer. He tells the men that tried to attack him that the pain will render them unconscious but that they won't die. The men beg for forgiveness and promise to pay their fees. The mysterious hooded woman exclaims that Daisuke was amazing. He immediately turns to the owner to apologize for leaving his work at the back. But she slaps him hard on the back, telling him that it was thanks to him that she got to live another day. She then tells Lena and Daisuke that they could use the rooms on the second floor. Lena was happy to hear that from the owner. The owner informs them that since they were lacking workers here, Lena and Daisuke could stay and work till they have gathered enough money. Lena is seen enjoying her bubble bath in the tub. She looks out at the window wondering what would happen, but instead were saved. After chopping down a lot of wood, Daisuke looks at his watch and realizes that it was getting late and needed to go back. But someone appears behind him, causing him to ask who it was. The tan-skinned woman had appeared once again and asked Daisuke if he was a magic user. Daisuke was alarmed to see her from before. She then reveals the bag of money, asking him if he was looking for it. Daisuke recognizes it as Lena's purse and asked her to return it. But she tells him to come at her just like how he did with the scumbag from before. Hearing this made Daisuke silent until he turns away from her, telling her that he will not attack someone unarmed like her. This stuns her for a moment before she tells him that he was quite a naive guy, which she doesn't hate. She then leans in close to Daisuke while touching his chest. She asks him if he would come with her to the Coliseum. Subscribe, like, comment and share to support the channel. Thank you for the support.
The dark elf lady approaches our boy and hugs him, introducing herself as Ashley. She questions Daisuke on whether he was willing to participate with her in the Coliseum matches and that it wasn't a bad deal for the both of them, but our boy seems to be faltering as he hesitates to answer her right away. This was when Lena appears out of the blue from finishing her shower. Her face was stunned upon seeing our boy rizzing another lady right in front of her. She looks at Daisuke and asks him about who that lady was. He then tells her that Ashley was the one responsible for stealing her purse. Ashley shows no remorse at all for her actions and just calmly introduces herself to Lena as well. While Lena was startled to learn this new type of news, she immediately rushes towards Ashley, telling her to immediately return her purse, but Ashley tells her to chill for a moment. She takes out the purse and tosses it into the air lightly, telling Lena that the amount of money inside this purse was just spare change for her, because she now has a way to get even more of this. Hearing this info made Lena curious about what she meant. As she explained to her, Lena was shocked to learn that she wanted to enter the Coliseum with Daisuke, but Ashley tells her that as long as Daisuke using the spell that he had used against the thug from before back then everything would work out fine. She informs them that the Coliseum was a free-for-all battle royale where tens of people who got real skills were fighting against each other, and the last one who still stands will win the grand prize of 100 gold coins. But Ashley points out that there was actually a problem with that, and reveals that the winner must face the boss of the Coliseum called Dorgon. It was revealed that Dorgon was a man who possessed immense strength and he never loses, not even once. since the first challenge battle was held. But Ashley was positive that if they managed to get by that guy, then the 100 gold coins was theirs for the taking. As soon as Ashley's explanation about the Colosseum ended, Lena warns Daisuke to not be swayed by her words. She tells him that participating in the Colosseum was very dangerous. She knew that some of the participants were actually locals who were forced to partake in the battle, and that the town's Lord Hildert was actually sending a few of the locals to make up the numbers. She also knew that if you wanted to get out, then you would have to pay 50 gold coins, but to gather that amount of money was no easy feat. Ashley cuts in to tell them that it doesn't matter. She knew that the both of them were outsiders, so there was no way that will happen, as they will just go there for a minute and win, that's it. But Lena shouts that what she said wasn't what she meant. Ashley then turns to Daisuke to ask him if he would come with her, but our boy doesn't fall for the ladies that easily. He rejects her request and stated that he couldn't exactly trust her because it seems to him that she was hiding something important from them. He continues to tell her that in the line of business, he had his fair share of dealing with someone who held back the truth from him. Having worked so many years as a salaryman, Daisuke has been able to discern that just by looking into someone's eyes. Hearing the rejection made Ashley question if it's a no. No matter what, she begins to back away from them, telling the both of them that it was a shame as she had sensed something special from Daisuke. Ashley started to leap backwards, thinking that she was hitting on something big, but Lena shouts at her to return her purse back, but it was too late as Ashley hops away using the trees. As she leapt from the trees, her mind was filled with the amount of gold coins she needed, which was 45. Daisuke then takes a look at his watch and exclaimed out loud that it was already time for work and told Lena that he needed to go back for the time being. He quickly enters the portal and returns back to Japan, where he sees that it was already 7:30 a.m. Back at the restaurant, Lena places down a plate of food as the owner tells her a story about the Colosseum. She tells Lena that back then, right after the fall of Ferdia Kingdom, the governing lord changed and it became a hideous affair. Back when the battle challenge was first held, there was no one like those suckers from yesterday. But the owner wonders who was going to make Hildert speechless by defeating Dorgan again. Lena was curious by what she meant with speechless, while the patrons of the restaurants were oozing over how cute Lena was. We then turned to Hildert's castle, which was located on a cliff that oversees the city. Dorgan was seen Hulk smashing everything that stood in his path. He continues his rampage, destroying all the pillars that surrounded him. A group of men were keeping a close eye on him when Lord Hildert appears and questions them on how Dorgan was going. The men reported to him that Dorgan was in peak condition and that there were no signs of rejection from the regeneration magic. Lord Hildert was impressed, as he expected this from the berserker. He noted that as long as he has his spells, then he could make a warrior like Dorgan bend to his will with ease. The men were glad to hear that, as Hildert explains to them that from the time of immemorial, people have longed for the sight of brutal fights, which was the very reason they gather here at the Colosseum. He exclaims out loud that humans feel the greatest pleasure when they fight and that it was truly the greatest venue to make profits. He soon places his hand inside a bag filled with papers, telling his men that it was time for the raffles. He throws the paper around his men and orders them to gather the people for the Colosseum's match. A portal appears in the restaurant where Daisuke steps out from. He notices that something was off as he turns to the side. He could see that the owner was yelling at the guards that were in her restaurant. She shouts at them about how they were dragging her husband, who was 70 years old, into the Colosseum. Daisuke then approaches Lena to figure out what was going on. She explains to him that the guards were here to take the owner's husband, who was chilling with a blunt, to participate in the Colosseum match. Hearing this made Daisuke approach the guards to bargain with them, but the guard was adamant about it. He shouts at Daisuke and wonders who the hell he was and explains to him that this was a random selection mandated by Lord Hildert that has been made public. The guard went on to warn the owner that if she refuses, she needed 50 gold or to sell the restaurant. She couldn't believe that choices that was given to her, as her face was filled with anger, but the guard tells her to decide immediately. She then realizes that the restaurant could only earn up a single gold coin a month, so there was no way she could 50 gold coins. The guards then grab onto her husband's arms and pulled him away from the others. Seeing her husband being taken away forces the owner to say that she will sell the restaurant, but a voice shouts out, telling the guards that she will go instead. It turns out to be Lena. She stood firm with her sword in her hand. She tells the guards that she was willing to go to the Colosseum in the stead of the owner's husband, but the owner was shocked by her decision as she asks Lena if she understood what she said to the guards. Instead of replying with words, Lena takes out her sword and took a few swings towards the guard, who froze in fear as she points the tip of her blade at him. She tells him dead in the eye that even though she was dressed as a waiter, she was still a knight who was confident in her ability. The guard quickly wipes his sweat away and informs her that there was no problem with her taking the husband's place. But the owner continues to beg Lena that she couldn't do that when all of a sudden, Ashley appears asking Lena if she needed a hand, but in exchange when they win, she would be taking half of the winning prize. Daisuke then appears as well to tell Lena that if she was going then he would too, as he was being true to himself. Lena then turns away from the owner, telling the owner to forgive her as she would be taking a leave from her job. The owner continued to be flustered over their actions and wonders if they were dead serious about it. But Lena looks at her with a confident look on her face, telling the owner that they will try to defeat Dorgon and make Hildert speechless. We now turn to the massive Colosseum where the free-for-all battle will begin. A man stood on a podium and tells the crowd before him that the battle challenge will start and that those who are confident should enter through the participants' entrance. The crowd was made up of various warriors from all around, donning various weapons and armors. But all I see is a bunch of target boards for our boy who uses the power of America. Another man stood amongst the crowd who were watching the match. He announces to everyone that the time that they had been waiting for has arrived, the entrance of the combatants. The gates to the Colosseum soon opened and the crowd of warriors made their entrance. Daisuke and Lena were amongst the warriors and could feel the intense pressure of the crowd and warriors that surrounded them. The crowd began to go wild as they shouted at the warriors to kill one another. The warriors were excited as some of them voiced out that they will be the last man standing. Ashley was among the warriors as well, holding onto her weapon, which was a type of whip. She looked around and sees that these guys were nothing compared to Daisuke. Lord Hildert made his appearance as well, standing above everyone else. He announces to them that they had done well to be gathered in this place as brave warriors. He then shouts at them to fight their way and whoever stands victorious will be granted 100 gold coins. With his arm raised high into the air, Hildert announces the start of the battle. Trumpets began to blow all around the Colosseum to begin the battle. The warriors gathered soon broke into groups to battle one another. The clashing of metal could be heard all around as Lena tells Daisuke that she was going to leave her rear to him. He hears this and tells her to leave it to him. With their backs against one another, the two of them stood against the warriors of the Colosseum together. The battle rages on as the warriors soon had their eyes on our duo. One of the warriors announces himself as Herabotius III and tells them that he had come here to test his prowess here in the Colosseum. He decides to take on Lena first and tells her to face his invincible blade. But her face showed no fear as she easily sideswiped the bitch with a single swing of her sword. Two other warriors soon came into the fight and proclaimed that they would be the last one standing. Lena sees them coming and chants her prayer. "O sword, grant me thy strength." She gains the strength to battle at each with the warriors as she continues to strike them all down with all her might. As soon as she was done with the pair of them, even more warriors lunged towards her. She then takes a focused stance in the middle of the battle. With a clear eye she unleashes a new skill called Sonic Zapper that sends everyone that got hit by it flying away. The warriors were shocked to see this new power from her as those that got hit stumbled onto the ground. Lena doesn't stop her attacks and continues to charge into the hordes of warriors. They couldn't believe that she was so strong. The warriors soon realized that self-taught no-names like them were no match for her and knew that Lena must have been a trained swordsman. They then decide that the only way they could win against her was to attack her rear where Daisuke was standing. This is why they say never to bring a sword to a gunfight, as our boy simply just shoots the first guy that came close to him without a single warning. The warriors were alarmed to witness what just happened and wondered if he had used magic. But Daisuke was amazed by the Colt that he held. He noted that it has a high caliber but was easy to use. The warriors remained confused by his actions as they couldn't even see Daisuke's attack. Daisuke's weapon of choice this time was the Colt government-issued model. The gun uses the 0.45 ACP rounds instead of the 9mm Parabellum ones. He explains that it may have short ranges, but its weight will deliver a heavy shock upon impact. He explains all this while dodging the attacks from the warriors before shooting one of them at point-blank range. He noted that one shot was enough to stop one's movement, but informs all of them that the bullets were all rubber-tipped. The crowd goes wild over Daisuke's actions as they wondered who he was. Daisuke then points his gun towards the remaining warriors, warning them that he would shoot if they come any closer. Herabotius soon recovers from Lena's attack and noted that she was really tough but that he wouldn't let down his guard down next time for sure. But Lena continues to whack the shit out of the various warriors that surrounded her while Daisuke repeatedly fires upon anyone that came close to them. Herabotius could only stare in silence as he watches them dominate the Colosseum match. The innocent villagers who were forced to join the Colosseum match trembled in fear as they huddled together. They knew that it was useless for them to fight as some of them had never even touched a sword in their life before, but an experienced warrior spots them from afar and sees them as easy prey. He walks towards them with a confident demeanor as he looks to kill them. The villagers could only scream out in fear while closing their eyes from their impending doom. but something whacks the living soul out of the warrior and sends him flying backwards. Ashley arrives with her whip in hand, telling the warrior to stop it and warning him that if he dares to lay his hands on them, then she would be his opponent instead. The villager couldn't believe that she had saved her, but it turns out that Ashley knew his name as Ethan. The villager was surprised to learn that as Ashley tells him that she was looking for a man who wore a scarf just like his. The crowd continues to go wild and started shouting to kill and fight some more. The owner of the restaro had arrived as well and looked around with a worried expression on her face. She came here because she was worried for the kids, but wonders if they were going to be alright. A man appears by her side to inform the crowd to pick their bets. He announces that if there's anyone left who wants to place a bet, now was their last chance. He reveals to the crowd that for the time being, the highest odds are on the guy with the weird clothes and the night girl over there. We return to the battlefield where one of the warrior learns that Lena was quite skilled but considered Daisuke to be the most dangerous as they would be finished even before they could get close to them. But another warrior points out something that he spots. He notices that unlike Lena, Daisuke has been fighting one-on-one without taking anyone down. The other warrior soon notices that it was true and realizes that they might win if they attack Daisuke with their numbers. Their plan went to action as Daisuke spots two attacks coming from both of his sides. He barely manages to dodge the attacks that seem to come from everywhere as the warrior exclaimed with joy that even if he downed one of them, the others would cut him down in return. Daisuke finally manages to get some space between them and noted that their plan was effect while Lena calls them cowards. But our boy ain't a pushover as he places his arm into a portal. The warrior sees this and wonders what was going on now. We return to Ashley, who tells the villagers to run like hell if they came across one of the warriors. She continues to tell them that the last man standing would be the winner, but losing doesn't mean that they have to die either, so it meant that they could end the battle by just laying down and yielding. But the villagers continued to feel doomed as they knew if they lose this fight then they would only be sent back for another battle, which meant that they could never get out of this place. Ashley hears this and couldn't believe that they were still complaining. She tries to convince them that if they make it out alive then they would be able to figure something out. But first was to run away and to cling onto their lives. But as she explains to the villagers, something was happening in the background that causes her to turn around to see what it was. Daisuke could be seen holding a new type of weapon and unleashing the power of America heavily onto the warriors that came close to him. The warriors could only exclaim out loud about what was with that strange-looking hammer as Daisuke reloads his weapon. With more ammo loaded, he points his weapon back and introduces it as the Ingram M10, an American-made submachine gun. He tells them that the submachine gun is a gun that is able to shoot pistol munitions consecutively, and with this M10, in particular compared to assault rifles, was easier to swing around, and it was quite effective in a close combat situation like this. Bang bang went Daisuke as he empties another clip onto the warriors. He continues to tell them that his weapon was basically a machine pistol that was capable of shooting multiple targets at once. The crowd started to cheer loudly after seeing Daisuke defeating so many warriors. Ashley looks at him with awe and noted that he was a really incredible guy. She also knew that if it was him, then it was possible for him to this match. Even Lord Hildert was impressed by Daisuke as he commented that they had a formidable contender this time. He then orders his men to let Dorgon out, but one of them wonders if it was alright to let him out this early. Lord Hildert replies back to his men that to let Dorgon fight with only 1 or 2 men left standing would be a killjoy. The men understood his orders and went on to execute it as Lord Hildert wore a smile on his face. A gate to the match soon opens wide. The warriors in the arena soon notices it was opened. Dorgon didn't waste any time and started to just run out from the gates. His sudden appearance on the battlefield was enough to send various warriors flying everywhere in the air. He enters his Hulk mode and started to smash everything that was in his way. The warriors were alarmed to see that something was charging towards their way and started to run, with a massive stomp onto the ground. Dorgon now appears right before Daisuke. Lena, Ashley and even Daisuke were alarmed to see Dorgon's massive size as he towers over them. The announcer proclaims to the crowd that this was the moment that they had been waiting for, the entrance of the strongest warrior Dorgon. The crowd began to chant his name as he made his appearance. Dorgon lets out a fierce roar in response. He grabs onto 2 warriors with his bare hands and lifted them into the air. The warriors could only scream out for someone to save them. Daisuke sees this and immediately fires onto Dorgon's body, but he was shocked to see that his bullets had done nothing at all. Dorgon then takes a swing towards our boy, but he manages to dodge it. He finds himself back with Lena, who called out to him with concern. He tells her that he was alright but noted that Dorgon was much more dangerous than he thought. The other warriors were also shocked to witness Dorgon's strength as no one had told them that he would be this monstrous. Lord Hildert makes another announcement, telling the warriors that if they wanted to grasp their freedom, then there was no other way but to fight. This was the tipping point of the match as everyone stopped their fights to focus on one being, Dorgon himself. Lord Hildert then wonders who amongst them would be able to defeat the strongest of all warriors.
Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.